guys? Welcome to yet another video. Today is Motor Teardown Monday. It is about 10:45 in the morning. It's my only day off. So if you saw the end of my last video, I have what I believe to be lifter tick. I'll post a clip right now. Alright, go for it. And here's a better close-up video on my iPhone. But if you listen closely, you can hear a little knocking noise. So that's what I'm going to be repairing. From Tick Performance, I ordered lifter trays, head gaskets, lifters. I went with the Morale lifters. Those should be in the mail hopefully in the next couple of days. But it's my only day off of work, so today I'm going to be filming little bits and pieces here and there of me doing the top end pull, so basically just removing the heads. And I feel like I filmed this a lot of times, mainly like I caught the good video of my cam install video. If you haven't seen that, I'll put the link in the description somewhere up here. But yeah, so what I'm going to be doing is removing the heads. I got a bore scope, so I'm going to bore scope the lifter bores, and hopefully the cam lobes aren't scored up. If the cam lobes are scored up in any way, that means I'm going to have to pull the cam and replace that, and that'll be a whole lot of fun. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and tear down the top end, and I will include little bits and pieces. But yeah, stay tuned. I'm going to go and get started. Okay, so quick update on what I've done so far. I have removed the ignition coils and the associated wiring on both sides of the motor. I have jacked it up, and I have loosened up the X-pipe underneath there. So right now I'm going to be prepping to remove both exhaust manifolds on both sides of the motor. I have removed the cooling assembly. It's really easy to do. I just drained everything into a bucket, which I've now moved. Made a little bit of mess over there, but I have the cooling assembly out right now. Of course, the intake. I've kind of just thrown everything in here, bolts and the ignition coil bracket based upon driver's side and passenger side. It's really easy to remember, so I didn't really feel like labeling any of that right there. But yeah, so I'm going to remove the alternator. The belt's already loose. I'm going to remove the alternator, and on a side note, I can see that the heat wrap that I put in last video, I know I didn't get a very good clip of it, if it would focus. I heat wrapped the exhaust whenever I did my quick little clutch line repair video. If you haven't seen that one, I'm going to put a link up top. It's a pretty good video if you ever have an issue where you put long tubes on your Corvette or LS application and your clutch line melts. It's a very common problem. But yeah, be sure to watch that video. That one's pretty good. But yeah, after the headers are removed, the X-pipe and the headers, what I'm gonna do is remove this intake manifold. I don't have a fuel line disconnect tool on me, but I think I can get away with just unbolting the fuel rail and maybe pulling it back. If not, then I'll just make a makeshift one or run to the auto parts store. But yeah, I think this is going to be fairly easy to take off. It's an LS motor, so it's not all that complicated. I'm just going to label my bolts accordingly. So this is actually a side note I should have mentioned. So I'm loosening the header bolts on the driver's side, and if you can see, there's a coolant temperature sensor. Now, I've actually made this mistake in the past, and I've kept it on there whenever trying to wiggle the headers, and I've broke that plastic piece right there. So what I always do is, so say for example you're doing this with coolant in the engine and you haven't removed the whole cooling assembly, get like a silicone plug of some kind of sort. Now the coolant system is drained, so I don't expect that much to come out of there, but this is also a good way to drain coolant from the heads if you're doing this kind of work. So whatever residual will hopefully come out, and like I said, if you haven't removed your front coolant assembly and you need to do header work and you need to finagle the headers, I just recommend, you know, removing that in case you break it, because I have actually broken one before. It's not a big deal, it's because it's a relatively cheap part, but oh, almost fell. But I just recommend doing it, and I don't think that much is going to come out. No, yeah, it's all drained out. But anyways, yeah, just a quick tip, because this header, whenever you're trying to remove it, you're gonna angle it that way, because I need to pull it out of the X pipe. So I'm gonna separate the X pipe and pull the headers that way, and hopefully that should make that drop down there. Maybe I can get a good clip of my X pipe, but kind of bad lighting, but that is my X pipe right there, and I need to separate the long tubes right about by those flanges, which I've already scooted back a little bit. They're loose. Alright, so quick update. The intake manifold is taken off. I think what I'm going to do now, and the headers are off, the oil is drained. I still need to pull the oil filter. I'm going to inspect it for metal particulates, but right now it's making pretty good progress. I'm going to do the passenger side head first, and then I'm going to tackle the driver's side. It looks like I'm going to have to remove that power steering and alternator bracket. That'll be fun. I'll probably also have to further drain the power steering fluid reservoir. Everything went pretty smooth. The only thing that was kind of tricky is, I'll zoom in right now, if you can see that plug sticking up there. I had to undo the inlet to it in order to get the manifold out, because there's a hose that routes right over their brake booster area. But yeah, so far we're making pretty good progress. I'm going to try to get this valve cover off and go ahead and remove the passenger side head. I'll give you guys an update here in a little bit. So I have another update. Well, if my camera would focus, I gotta set it down for it to focus and then tap on the screen. So if you can see, I removed one of the lifter trays, and it's obvious that the tray failed. And I bet one of those lifters is probably worn to shit. I'm hoping the camshaft is going to be okay, but with the lifter tray this bad, it's obvious that it was an abrupt failure. And I'm hoping that I caught it in time to where the camshaft isn't all scored up, but we're going to see after I pull the lifters. So one sec, I'm going to pull all the lifters. Alright guys, so I found the source of the failure. I have pulled all of the lifter trays and all of the lifters. Now, if you look on, I believe this is cylinder 2, you can see the camshaft there. It doesn't appear to be in too bad of condition. I see some slight scoring on it. All the other ones look perfect. Now, let me show you the lifter that I pulled from the lifter tray. And you can get a look at it here. So here's the good lifter, right? And this is from the tray. It's kind of dark. I'm going to let the camera acclimate to the light. Okay, here we go. So you can see where the lifter tray failed. And this is how these are supposed to sit in there. They're supposed to sit in there pretty firm and not move. Well, this one was just all over the place. It was wiggling around, wearing on the cam a little bit, and ultimately, so the bearing feels fine on it, but if you look closely, you can see, I don't even have to adjust the camera, you can see where the roller started to fail and develop a flat spot and a crack. So the crack indicates to me that this damage happened before, probably whenever I threw the push rod and replaced the push rods and didn't replace the lifter. So the crack is probably prior damage, and then it got worse over time. So possibly whenever I threw the push rod is whenever the lifter tray was damaged, and it might have just got worse over time. Probably a piece of plastic in my oil pan, but as long as it's not obscuring the oil pump, I think we're good. So I'm using a bore scope and I'm looking inside of the lifter bore on cylinder 2. And if you look at, so this is cylinder 2, you can see some slight scoring on the cam. What I'm going to do is rotate the motor and see if there's any flat spots that have been developed in it. The lifter bore itself, it looks alright, to be honest. It doesn't look too bad. This is what it's supposed to look like. So that's the good cam lobe right there. You can see it. Not scored up. There's some nice braking on it. And then you can see the potentially damaged one where there's scoring on it. I think I can make the light a little less bright. Okay, that's better. You can really see the scoring on the cam lobe. So I'm going to rotate it, and that'll make me decide if I need to get a new camshaft or not. Alright guys, I'm back. I forgot the last thing that I filmed, but I do have parts in the mail now. Adjust the camera really quick. So here's what I got. Here's the update. I got lifter trays. I got them from Tick Performance. Everything came out to like, I don't know, a couple $100, maybe like $400 or so. But I got lifter trays with a bolt. Here they are. This is Mr. Gasket Co. And if you're gonna do all of them, you might as well do all of them. You need 4 of them. Get the one with the bolt too. I mean, you're already doing all the work, so it kind of just makes sense to replace that one lifter bolt. I'll probably throw some blue Loctite whenever I install it. Head gaskets, got 2 of them, one for both sides. ARP head studs, and then of course the lifters. I went with Moral lifters, and right now I actually have these sitting in the small oil bath in a Tupperware container. And if you look closely, it's shiny actually. Machine the oil. You can see like little bubbles. That's the oil getting in all the little crevices and orifices of these lifters, these hydraulic roller style lifters. And then looking over here at the engine bay, if you can see, I've kind of cleaned up the surface of the cylinder head with Scotch-Brite pad and WD-40. I'll probably get hate for that in the comments or something. I don't care. But I cleaned that up. I didn't touch the pistons. I'm just going to leave those. I really don't like touching pistons with the Scotch-Brite pad. But I did do the cylinder head, and I got a good amount of the gasket material out, and I think installing the new one is gonna be relatively easy. What I'm gonna do is install the lifters and the lifter trays and bolt them down right here, like 1 and 2, so 2 for each side. And I'm probably gonna put a little bit of assembly lube on the roller part of the lifters. And then I already showed you, I believe in the previous clip, that lifter bore right there. I bore scoped it. I'm just gonna keep the cam in there. I'm not too concerned with it at the moment. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'll film a little bit here and there, and then I'm gonna be working on this after work, because I work every day this week. I'll have a day off at the moment, so I'll be doing this after I get off work. So little bits and pieces, slowly but surely. I'll get it all filmed though. Okay, so I've had my hydraulic roller lifters soaking in this oil bath for a good amount of time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the lifter tray, and I hope this works. If it doesn't work, I guess you'll see it. I'll grab the lifter and I'll slide it into the tray. And it's supposed to lock in pretty firm because these are new trays. Boom, locks in firm very nicely. Another lifter, locks in, and then let's get another one. These are a lot firmer than the other ones were. Of course, the other ones had some miles on them. All right, so now we're in the tray. Let me get a towel and wipe off my oil fingerprints, but oh, there we go. So they're in there. And if you can see, I'm gonna try not to wipe off too much of the oil here, but they're sitting in there very snug, and that's how they're supposed to be. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a little dab of engine assembly lube. I always like to use this on new components that are going in the engine. I mean, anything will work. I'm using Ultra Slick. You can get it at O'Reilly's. That's where I got it. It's a Permatex brand engine assembly lube, and it's pretty decent. I've used this on this car quite a bit actually. So just a dab on each one. And this is where it's going to sit on the cam. Now the cam is already broken, obviously. I'll probably post the bore scope photos in this video. I actually already made an Instagram post over the bore scope photos, but engine assembly lube on all these, and this is going to be nice and thick just for our first startup. Yeah, get that nice and worked in there. All right. Now what I'll do is I'll dry off some of this oil, and then I'm going to slide it into its hopefully permanent resting spot for a good amount of time. Hopefully I don't have to do this job again. It's fairly straightforward, but this is just one of those jobs that it really sucks having to do again. I'm going to call that good. That's how it looks. And then I'm just going to slide this in here into the bores, and I'm hoping they line up nice and easy. Oh, come on. Okay, and we're not going in evenly. Fuck, this is what I thought was gonna happen. Oh, no, maybe we're going in. God damn it. They're all straight too. All lined up. You know what? Let me flip it the other way. Maybe this one will work. Now. Oh, it liked that a lot more. Okay, maybe I just had it upside down. Who knows? That went in nicely. And I'll show you. Well, I don't want to touch the camera because my hands are all oily, but it slid in very good that last time. And I can actually see now there's a groove that I didn't have aligned. I can show it. Well, can you see on the camera? Yeah, I guess this groove right here. I didn't have that lined up. But yeah, it's in now, and then there's some engine assembly lube touching the cam, so that's good. We'll get that nice and lubed up for our first crank up on these new lifters. Now this, where's it at? I'll grab it. It's gonna be a rather long clip. Try not to drag it out too much. I'm just gonna get, this is the lifter tray bolt that I recommended replacing. I'm just gonna get a little bit, just a little bit of blue Loctite on here. Not the red stuff. Don't use the red stuff. This will never come out if you use the red stuff. It will. It'll just not be fun. I'm gonna thread that in here. Now I've looked up online what the torque spec is supposed to be, and I'm getting different answers. I'm getting no more than 106 inch-pounds. I'm just gonna do the old trusty tighten it till I think it's tightened. Hopefully it won't go from a righty-tighty to a righty-loosey. But yeah, that's in there. I'm gonna tighten that up real quick and then go ahead and move on over to the other side. Well, not the other side, I guess. The other two cylinders back here.
What I'm going to do is take a look at Shaq. Same thing with Shaq, you know, again, with these sports. Okay. So what is it? Our insurance options or something like that. This piece only has certain value because of this. Can we go 450? Can we go 350? A nice stick or something like that. But do you know why it's worth the majority of the songs? Yeah, and that involves the loop. How you doing today? Oh, pretty good. What's up?
So I've moved the camera kind of out of the way because I don't want to knock it over. I'm using my DSLR to film this. But I have the cylinder head installed, and I have the ARP head bolts hand tight in there as it described in this little procedure that came in the box. And it's fairly straightforward. It gives you the bolt pattern you're supposed to torque it in order at, and then it also, I mean, it's very self-explanatory. So right now I'm going to go 25, 50, and then all the way to 80 foot-pounds on the head bolts, and then the last ones I'm going to do are going to be the ones on the top up there. Pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to do that and film it real quick, and then probably call it a night because I have work in the morning, and then I'll pick back up tomorrow. Shit.
Please send your resume to Jonathan and Substrate. Sunday morning. Detected for decades.
Dragon Resilience crew is heading home from the internet around 5:20 tonight and undocked before they left.
Alright guys, I am back. It's now another day. Probably no lapse in time, of course, since I'm going to edit this all together. But the cylinder head is mostly torqued down. I got it torqued down to 50. If you look at the spec sheet here, it's supposed to go, here we go, focus. 50 and then 80, and then I haven't touched the top ones yet, the ones on the top. But my torque wrench only goes to 75. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it goes to 75 foot-pounds, and the torque spec calls for 80. I was thinking about doing 75 foot-pounds and then 90 degrees, which in all reality probably would be fine, but I'm just going to borrow somebody's torque wrench or just buy another one and then get those torqued down properly to spec. I'm just super like anal on that stuff. I like it to be right the first time. And then over here I have the driver's side cylinder head. I got it nicely cleaned up for the most part. All or most of the gasket material has been removed. And then I'll grab a flashlight and I'll show you the other side. I used Scotch-Brite pad and WD-40, and then I blew out the cylinder bores, make sure there's no particulated matter in there, as well as the lifter bores. I kind of blew those out and got it with a shop towel. Overall, not too bad. I'm not going to touch the pistons. I really don't like taking a Brillo pad or a Scotch-Brite pad to pistons. I think I mentioned that earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and get the other cylinder head on here, and that's probably all I'm going to get done today, and then I'll hop back on tomorrow. I kind of got a good clip of that. I might be able to get a good clip of this one of me putting it in here. I'm just not going to set the camera up on these fender wells here because I'm afraid I'm going to drop it, but I'll do the best that I can. Oh, and on a side note, if you're watching this for installation instruction, make sure the little the dowels are in there. There's 2 on each side, and you can actually just set the head gasket on there, and you can put the rest of the cylinder head on it without having any bolts in it. It's actually pretty easy. Most, if not all, GM LS motors are like this. They have these little dowel pins. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but yeah, just a quick little tip. And then I forgot to mention, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but I need to do the lifters. I'm going to do the same thing on this side as I did that side, but yeah, lifters and lifter trays, all new, that's going in, then gasket, then cylinder head. So I'm not sure if I got a good clip of this last time, but this is a method that I'm using to oil soak the lifters, and if you can look closely, ignore the sheen from the garage light, but you can see all the tiny little bubbles seeping into the orifices. And I'm going to let them sit for maybe about, I don't know, 10-15 minutes. Because I'm just going to put them in and oil's going to drip down. But I just want to make sure everything's properly lubricated before I put it in. But yeah, just a small clip of that. I'm not sure if I already recorded it or not.
This should be a short conversation. Then you'd be protected if you ran enough black mask. You almost died because of this. You almost died because that's what I signed up for.
I love giving you a voice. Is to basically cultivate the next generation of leaders.
Attention Houston, CW39 is ready to immediately. This job is not for beginners. Experience is required and it is $72,000 per year.
So far, it's just been messy.
Alright, so I got the driver's side head torqued down to 50 foot-pounds. I'm going to pick back up tomorrow and torque everything down to 80 foot-pounds, and then probably work on getting the intake manifold installed. So I will be right back. Alright, so I forgot the last thing that I filmed. It's a different day. I think it was torquing the heads. I got the heads torqued down to 80 foot-pounds on the bolts, and then I believe it was 25 on the top ones. I'd have to check again, but the paper's over there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on getting the rocker trays in and the push rods. So I'm going to soak the push rods, maybe put like a little dab of engine assembly lube in it, and then I am going to rotate the motor and torque the rocker bolts down whenever it's at the base lobe of the cam. I'll show you guys how to do that. So here's the push rods. I have them in a partial oil bath. I'm just gonna, I guess, lightly rub some oil on them and then shove them in the hole. Pretty straightforward and easy. They just rest right in there. There's another one. And I didn't even bother to keep these in order. Well, I did keep them in order whenever I took them out, but then I did like the little roll test to make sure that all of them were straight, and they all seem to be straight. So I'm kind of just throwing them back in here. I mean, it's fine. It's gonna work. They're all uniform in size and shape, so it'll be all right. But yeah, quick oil bath, and then just drop them on in there. Nice and easy. Oil. And there's that part. That part's done. Alright, so once they're loosely thrown in there, just kind of give them a little wiggle, and they should seat all in. They shouldn't clear this little groove right here at the top of the cylinder head. They shouldn't clear that. So just give them a wiggle and push them in. There we go. Alright, so now you get your rockers and your rocker tray. Just a factory GM LS rocker tray. And then now, if you haven't done so, I mean, I highly recommend getting a trunnion kit. It helps out a lot. It's something that people usually cheap out on. I'm glad I didn't cheap out on it, but I ended up cheaping out on the push rods, and I've been to push rod earlier a couple months ago. A whole other story. But yeah, we're gonna go and set this on in there. So what I'm doing, I'm just getting them finger tight, and then I'll show you guys the torque down procedure for them. But just know, don't just take an impact or something and ugga-dugga these things in there. There's a proper sequence you're supposed to follow, and like I said, I'll show you guys how to do that, but I'll probably clip this out. But yeah, just hand tight these for now and you'll be good. Okay, so I kind of got all of them just barely even tight. It's an 8mm for the rocker retainer bolts. And also, one thing that I should have mentioned is I put a little dab of engine assembly lube. I ended up taking it back off after the last clip. You don't have to, you can slightly wiggle them around. I put a little dab of engine assembly lube right here. Probably should have included that, but now I'm telling you, that's what I did. So now I'm going to do the other side, and then I will proceed on telling you guys and showing you, demonstrating if you must, the torquing sequence. Alright guys, so here is what I'm going to do. First things first, if you haven't removed your steering rack, which I have not removed my steering rack, if you can see, it's kind of in the way of the crank bolt. It's a 24mm, but a 15/16 wrench will work. I just got this from the auto parts store. What you can do is rotate the crank, rotate the motor, with the 15th, 16th. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for each one of these to get to the base circle. And by base circle, what I mean is I'm going to wait for the rocker to compress the spring and then for the pressure on the spring to come up. So once it goes down and then up, I'm going to tighten it down. And I'm going to do that for each and every single one. It takes a little bit longer, but this way you don't have to worry about tightening exhaust, valve 1, rocker, and whatever. I'm just going to do it this way. It's super easy. All you have to do is just rotate it, and it's good. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so I went ahead and installed the valve covers. All the rocker torque stuff was good. I always just hand tight the valve covers. I never torque spec them. I mean, I've never had an issue with it. I'm going to go ahead and call it a night, and then tomorrow I'll pick back up and install the intake manifold and throttle body, and then start working on some of the accessories that I pulled off. But yep, I'll be back in the morning. Well, after work tomorrow. Alright, so intake manifold is partially installed. It calls for 89 inch-pounds on the torque spec, but my torque wrench is it doesn't really like to work in the low range of inch-pounds like that. Anything under 10 foot-pounds, it just doesn't like. So I just did the valve cover method where I tightened it to tight enough. So that's kind of tight. I got the injectors plugged in. I have just some few miscellaneous things to plug in, but I'm gonna take a break here. I know like this is probably 2 clips, but this is like right after work for me. So I'm gonna come back tomorrow, and then we will start working on power steering pump and getting the cooling accessories in. All right, well, I forgot what I recorded last already, but I'm gonna try to get the probably the power steering stuff installed on that side, and then bolting up some of the miscellaneous stuff on the top of the motor, but for the most part everything's done. I'm just going to try to knock out as much as I can. Alright, so the power steering components are pretty much all bolted up. Next thing I'm going to do is put on the alternator over there, and then go on with the cooling assembly. Alright, so the cooling assembly is in, and the throttle body was connected. The last clip, alternator's in. Next I'm going to connect the cold air intake and then start plugging up the ignition coils. I do need to tackle the headers, which is what I've been avoiding, but that's probably going to be the next move. Alright, so I'm currently pulling a vacuum on the AC system, so I'm going to let that pull for maybe like 2 hours or so. I think that'll be good. and then meantime I will finish bolting everything else up. Headers are in and bolted up. Looks kind of nice with the heat wrap. I ended up redoing that side a little bit, but I think it looks rather nice. So here I can get the ignition coils and spark plugs in after I still have to torque those to spec. I'll probably do that first, but yep, it's coming together. Alright, so it is now another day. I've let the AC system sit under vacuum for about, I want to say, like 16 to 18 hours, and it's holding, so that's good. I'm going to go ahead and pull a little bit more vacuum on it for maybe an hour or so, get any extra moisture that's in there out, because the system was open atmosphere for quite some time. And while I do that, I'm going to go ahead and add some oils, and then hopefully we can get a start up here pretty soon. Alright, so I got the battery connected, and I think I'm going to go ahead and try a first startup. I'm anticipating it to sputter just a little bit, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully everything's well. Everything seems good. The car started to heat up a little bit. It got above 220, which I believe is a set point, but there's air in the coolant system, and that's why I'm getting a low level, but once I get that bled out, it'll be good. I'm going to let it cool down for a little bit. Alright, so sorry if the camera lens is a little foggy, but yeah, everything's buttoned back up, not having any issues with the car. I'm going to go and pull it back in the garage. No lifter tick. Running rather nice. Yeah, car's running good. I think I'm going to go ahead and conclude it on this note, on a good note. But yeah, if there's anything you guys would like to see or think that I missed, comment down below and I'll try to capture that in the next video. And I will be back when I'm back. Thank you for watching.